Alrighty, guys, welcome to the video. So today we're going to be talking about the doping scandal, which has rocked, well, it's not really a scandal, but it's rocked the Commonwealth Games on day one. And this is the first athlete to go positive at the Games. We know there have been various athletes which have tested positive in the days or the weeks leading up to the Games, which has stopped them from competing. Nonetheless, this Ghanaian boxer, Shakul, I hope I pronounced this okay, Shakul Samed, suspended after a failed dope test. This was on day one. This article came out yesterday. So again, we'll have a read through, and then we'll kind of talk about, what was the drug that he went positive for? Why might he, have intentions or be even considering using the drug? Do I think he ingested it intentionally and whatnot, and a bit of the nuances around it. So, Uganda boxer Shakul Samed won't be able to partake in the Commonwealth Games 2022 after he failed a dope test on the very first day of competition in Birmingham. The Commonwealth Games organisers took the decision after the 23-year-old Samed tested positive for a banned masking agent, furosemide. So, furosemide, and they've said here a banned masking agent. Now, obviously that we know it's a diuretic. That is one of the utilities where it could be used from a, I guess the aspect of masking performance enhancing drugs, but there's a bit more to it than this. So furosemide is a medication used to treat fluid retention in a person with a kidney disorder, heart failure, and liver disease. It can be taken either through injection or through the mouth. The medicine is also used to treat patients with high blood pressure. So, and this is, we'll dive a little bit into the pharmacology of furosemide, but I think that this is probably more likely the reason as to why he would have any kind of interest or motivation to even taking something like this, because we know reducing fluid retention is going to reduce weight, and he competes in the light heavyweight division, which for Commonwealth Games this varies between different organizations, but Commonwealth Games is 75 kilograms to 80 kilograms. And, obviously if you can naturally or kind of sit above 80 kilograms and then kind of shed weight down to meet the weight cut, that's going to be advantageous when you're fighting, because you're going to have more power, more strength, hold more weight. That's going to be beneficial. So before the weigh-in, if you can shed some extra fluid, that's always going to be a benefit. And this is where, we see diuretic use. We see other methods of stripping fluids in like UFC, for example, or mixed martial arts, or even boxing to make weight cut. Some pretty extreme methods, and some guys being able to cut, 10% of their body weight, even like very significant amounts of fluid, and then rehydrate before the event. But we'll continue reading through. So his A sample was found to contain a prohibited substance, diuretic and masking agent furosemide. He has therefore been suspended with immediate effect, and the Uganda Commonwealth Games Association have been informed. The Commonwealth Games Federation statement was quoted as saying, Samed can now choose to get his B sample tested before any kind of charge is issued. So obviously, yes, we need to give him the benefit of the doubt. An athlete will not be imposed any penalty upon them unless their B sample also tests positive. So his B sample could go negative, but for something like this, if it's coming up on your A sample, this is not a bioidentical hormone or anything which could otherwise, naturally be found in the body. So therefore, such a drug is very easily detected, and would assume the B sample would also be positive. But, benefit of the doubt, he can get that B sample tested. He will now have the opportunity to provide further information, including requesting analysis of his B sample before any charge is issued. We just read that. Samed, a light heavyweight, was scheduled to lock horns with Luke John Rosalba from Mauritius in the first round of the championship on July 29th, so 2 days ago. After being suspended, his opponent won via a walkover. The statement also talked about its zero tolerance policy towards any kind of doping in sport. We seek to maintain the integrity of the Commonwealth Games by running a comprehensive anti-doping program that focuses equally on education, prevention, and testing. Samed was also part of the Tokyo Olympics that took place last year in July, August. So he was indeed, and he finished, I believe it was 9th place at the Tokyo Olympics. Obviously, the depth of field from the Commonwealth Games to the Olympics is going to be a lot less. So therefore, if he's finishing top 10 at the Olympics, potentially he could even be, I don't know, top 5 or a medal hope. So, pretty significant and pretty bad news for the Gandon boxer. And so again, why would there be, I guess, motivation for anyone who has to fill a particular weight requirement prior to competing to use a drug like this, or even someone who's using performance-enhancing drugs to use a drug like this as a masking agent? So there's a couple of different reasons as to why someone would want to do it. But furosemide, nonetheless, is a loop diuretic. It acts by inhibiting luminal sodium-potassium chloride transporter or co-transporter in the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle. Long story short, that's all involved in the nephron of the kidney. In simple terms, basically what it's going to do is allow a larger volume of water excretion relative to what you would otherwise excrete in the urine. And therefore, the utility of that would be that you could dilute any kind of substance that was in your blood or that was going to be in your urine, because you're producing a much larger volume of urine. And that's why it can act somewhat as a masking agent. I personally, that was a motivation for using this compound. But the other or the alternative reason as to why someone would want to use it is because it will allow you to cut a significant amount of weight very fast through that kind of dehydrative effect. Obviously, there is good utility in this drug for that purpose because it has a half-life of only 2 hours via the oral administration route, up to 2 hours even. So it could be even less. And if you think about half-lives, and I don't know how it's going to exactly, how long one would remain positive for, but you could assume with a half-life of 2 hours, the drug's going to be cleared pretty quickly, and maybe you'd only test positive for a day or maybe longer, maybe a little bit less, depending on the, how sensitive their assays are for detecting all the metabolites and whatnot. But nonetheless, an elimination half-life in the urine of 2 hours, we assume it's going to be cleared very quickly. We assume I think potentially this could be utilized leading up to a weigh-in in the days prior, and then kind of stop the drug, do the weigh-in, and, go from there. You meet the kind of weight requirements, 75 to 80 kilograms for the light heavyweight division, and then you're good to go, and then you rehydrate prior to the event. But this was an out-of-competition test, so presumably they caught him, unexpectedly. Maybe he didn't expect to get tested when he did, and it was just bad timing. Who knows? Maybe he didn't intentionally ingest the compound. We can't make any assumptions, but this is just, some reasons as to why he maybe would have used it. And why do I not think it would be used in this context for the purpose of performance enhancement? Well, if we jump across to his Instagram, and obviously we can't, tell exactly looking at someone's body composition and their figure as to whether or not they're using performance-enhancing drugs and may want to mask them. It could be a bit of both. It could be masking and weight cutting, but I think it's more weight cutting. Because if we look at his body, it doesn't necessarily look, and again, this is very general, and you can't always tell, of course, it doesn't necessarily look like someone who is kind of abusing performance-enhancing drugs or weight cutters like clenbuterol or ephedrine or steroidal compounds, which are putting, adding extreme amounts of mass and helping him gain lean mass. Because if we look at him throughout the years, he's not necessarily someone who is, cut up and really all that lean when we jump across to his Instagram, which we will do now. Alrighty, guys, so here is the Instagram page of School Samed. I'm a simple guy with simple words. Now, he hasn't posted. This last post here was from 44 weeks ago, so, not very active at all. Whether or not this is even the official page of him, who knows, but nonetheless, these are pictures of the guy. So we can see, looking at his body composition, does he necessarily look like someone who is, obviously a decent amount of muscle mass, but not necessarily a guy that is incredibly peeled from a, body fat perspective, or someone who looks excessively, muscular relative to their low levels of body fat and whatnot. And, if even going back here, I know I'd appreciate this is 91 weeks ago, so almost 2 years ago. But, looking at the guy's body, does he necessarily look like someone who is using and abusing performance-enhancing drugs to improve his boxing or his aesthetic? Who knows? He doesn't necessarily look super lean, doesn't look super cut up. And obviously everyone's going to have different, if someone was using performance-enhancing drugs, they're always going to have different reactions, etc. And we can never really look at a body of someone from purely a photo and determine exactly whether or not they partake in performance-enhancing drug usage or steroid compounds or any other compounds. But nonetheless, it doesn't necessarily seem from a purely subjective or observatory, observation that, he is someone who is necessarily using or abusing performance-enhancing drugs. Now, that doesn't mean he couldn't be, and this couldn't be his furosemide usage couldn't be as a masking agent, but I would assume the more likely explanation would just be using it to cut weight. We see that all the articles kind of suggest that he's using it as a masking agent for performance-enhancing drugs, which, almost implies something more suspicious. But I would say this guy's probably just using it to cut weight, get down below 80 kilos or on the dot, or obviously just a touch below, to meet cut it. And then, then he can go back up to whatever he normally sits at before, or in the hours or the day before the fight or whatnot. So, that's my perspective there. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, it's very hard to tell, very difficult to tell from looking at a photo, whether someone looks like they use performance-enhancing drugs. But this was the fight against, I think it was from the Tokyo Olympics, where he actually finished 9th. I think he got knocked out here. One bad chapter doesn't mean my story is over. And even looking at his body composition compared to the opponent here, obviously like some very defined muscle striations going on, the biceps, the delts. This guy looks like, if I had to pick with one of them was using performance-enhancing drugs, it would be this guy, not this guy. He looks pretty soft, kind of fluffy, and there's not a critique on his physique, of course. He's got a great body, but doesn't necessarily look like a guy who is trying or would be trying to mask like steroid usage or fat cutters that, would be otherwise enhancing his performance. That's just my observation. That's just my take. I assume that given his body composition, how he looks, he'll be using it to cut weight. And let me know what you guys think. Any opinions, any comments are appreciated. Pop them in the chat. And nonetheless, the Commonwealth Games, the first kind of positive doping test to come out of the actual games themselves. We know that there was obviously a few Indian athletes who have gone positive in the lead up. There was literally one Kenyan female runner left out of the whole crew that was lined up to compete. There's a few others. There's another male Kenyan runner who had some issues with the drug testers. I'm sure there are various other athletes from various different countries who have also had problems in the lead up, but nonetheless, this was the first one to actually be within the games themselves. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think he was using it for. I think it would be purely a weight cutting effort in order to meet that sub 80 kilogram mark. But hey, who knows? He might not have even intentionally ingested the subject, and we've still got to wait for his B sample. So that's that. That's Commonwealth Games. First doping scandal to kind of emerge. So the Ugandan boxer Shakur Samed, and it'll be interesting to see what comes of his B sample and where they kind of go from here and what the implications are for his career, because I think they'll be obviously pretty significant 4-year ban if it's shown to be intentional, I believe. Thanks, guys. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.